Happy Soil Saturday, folks. So excited for today's episode because what we're going to be doing is trying to plant 100 cloves of red Russian garlic into a single raised bed. I've got no idea if this is going to work or not. Uh-oh. Oopsies. But that's what makes it kind of like a fun little adventure here. So we'll see how we land at the end of the episode here. With that being said, we got a lot of work to do to get these babies into the ground. So let's get to it. Alrighty, so like I said, we're not messing around. There is a lot of work to get done before we get our garlic babies into the ground because I want to make sure that they're going into the absolute best environment possible for them to totally thrive. And this is the bed that I'm going to be planting them into. But as we can see, it is in the middle of finishing off my succession crop of cabbages, cauliflower, and broccoli. And so what we need to do first here is we need to pull all this out of the bed. We got some bad news on the cabbage and cauliflower, which I'm going to chat about in just a second, but the broccoli is all set to be removed from the garden because I harvested all of those heads about 2 weeks ago. And just on that front, if you aren't planting your broccoli as a succession crop, I really encourage you to try it out, run a little experiment with it, because I started all of these seeds back at the very end of June, which is way later than when most people would go about starting their broccoli seeds. And I do that because as they were hitting maturity at the beginning of September and beginning to crown up, the temperatures were simultaneously dropping, and so that results in a way higher likelihood of getting a nice, beautiful head of broccoli off of your plants there. One last broccoli fun fact, each of these leaves taste just like broccoli, so if you were to chop these up and put them into a soup, you could make a really, really tasty potato, broccoli, cheddar soup, something nice and warm to be enjoying through the winter here. Oh, that sun feels so good, but you can't see me at all, so I'm just gonna switch the camera to over here. Alrighty, so next up are the cauliflower and cabbages, and this is a bittersweet one because they are so close to being perfectly ready, mature, and developed to be harvested, but they're just probably 2 to 3 weeks away. And the takeaway for me on this front is that back in June, I started these seeds on the same day as the broccoli, but now I can see they need just a couple more weeks. So for next year, I'm gonna start these seeds a little bit earlier on, closer to the beginning of June. But like I said, we can still harvest them right now. They're going to taste amazing, and I'm gonna do something fun with them. One of my favorite things to do with kind of extra goodies that I have coming out of the garden, just give those away to my neighbors. Everybody's paying so much money right now. Everything's so expensive these days. And so one of my favorite things to do is just kind of give that gift of gardening to folks in my community. So I get a big harvest box like this of goodies out of the garden, and I pop it at the bottom of my stairs here. Alrighty, I'm gonna take a quick snap here. And I bet that by the time we finish planting the garlic here, that all of this will be grabbed up by my neighbors all throughout my little area here. And I even put together a little bowl of extra garlic, so if anybody's looking to be planting their garlic, they're gonna be set up on that front as well. Speaking of, the bed is now empty, so let's get started on the garlic. Uh-oh. That's not good. So, I can remember this now from the springtime when I succession planted into this bed, and it was really starting to fall apart. All the wood was basically starting to rot and not in very good shape, and at this point I would say that it's like pretty much on its last legs. And so I could leave it as is, and it is going to hold the soil in place, give it one last growing season, but at the same time that just kind of kicks the problem a little bit further down the road. So uh-oh, just made this project much bigger than needed. Oops. Didn't even clean my hands. All right, so if I did my math correctly here, I should now be able to take those pieces of wood and pop them around this bed. Fingers crossed. If that ain't a good looking garlic bed, I don't know what is. Speaking of, it is time to get our babies into the bed here. So I'm gonna go ahead and start spacing it all out. And now, I'm not gonna lie to you, a little bit earlier, I was feeling a little bit frustrated because when I went to pick up the wood for this project, I noticed that my car was leaking a whole bunch of oil and gonna have to go into the shop, another bill that I have to pay, all that type of stuff. And it was just one of those frustrating moments. But then as I was working away on getting the wood put in place here, nailed in, and had the sun coming down on me, I just found that I was totally zenning out and relaxing into the time in the garden. And it's so hard to describe that feeling, but I know many of you have experienced it as well, where as you work away on some kind of like mindless task in the garden, everything starts to melt away, all those stresses, all those worries. And so as I was finishing off on that, getting everything spaced out, I just was totally zenned out here in the garden. And now we got to get these babies planted. And so you might have been wondering there, why was I putting these strings right through the middle of the garden? And that's because I want to run a little experiment as I plant these babies here. I've done tons of experiments over the last couple of years. And for this year, I want to play around with the depth that I plant them at. So for the ones in the middle, I'm going to plant those at the standard 4-inch depth that I've done every past season. And this is fairly deep, and that's because these garlic babies are about to go into the cold of winter and they need to be able to survive those cold temperatures they're going to see. Now on the far right hand side of the garden, I'm going to plant those really shallow. So I'm literally going to have the very top of them just barely below the surface of the soil, nearly poking out. And this is how I go about planting my onions to get really beautiful sized onions. And now on the far left hand side of the bed, I'm going to plant these ones really, really deep. I'm going to go all the way down to 6 inches for these ones. And I'm just kind of curious to see how those are going to do at that depth there. All right, I got this many cloves left and only a couple planting holes. It's gonna like literally come right down to the wire on if I can fit 100 into this bed. Let's see. Uh-oh, not able to quite fit 100 in the bed. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I must have got 93 in here. That can't be right. Hold on one second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, so there are more than 100 in the bed here. I must have just counted a couple too many garlics earlier today when I was having my coffee and waking up. So we have successfully done it, got more than 100 garlic into the beds. Last things I'm gonna do here, cover these up, get a leaf mulch over top of them, and then we are all good. That's all for today here, folks. Hope you enjoyed this episode. Go get those hands dirty, spend some time in the garden. I'll catch you on the next episode.